Hi everyone, this is Neel Raithatha, also known as the Wax Whisperer. Thank you for joining me in my latest video. We have here a patient who attended with bilateral dark occluding earwax, and when they arrived, I actually treated their left ear first. So this is their right ear, stay tuned for the left ear, and that's because they felt their left ear was the worst ear out of the two, and that was despite there being significantly more earwax present in their right ear. In their left ear, although they had less earwax, whatever earwax they had was impacted and pushed right up against the eardrum, hence why they felt that ear was the worst out of the two. In addition, prior to attending, the patient had been using hydrogen peroxide drops for a fortnight. And what hydrogen peroxide drops can do is sometimes make it far more difficult for me to perform microsuction. Hydrogen peroxide drops, when it enters the ear, it reacts with an enzyme secreted by the ceruminous glands called perioxidase. And when it reacts with the perioxidase enzyme, hydrogen peroxide is converted into water, and it also liberates into oxygen. And during that transformation into oxygen, we have what we call effervescence. We get mechanical foaming of the oxygen as it's being transformed into that. And during that foaming process, the effervescence, it's believed that the hydrogen peroxide drops helps to break up the membranes of the dead skins that form earwax. So the majority of earwax, believe it or not, is exfoliated dead skin cells. In addition, as hydrogen peroxide drops converts into water and oxygen, that water is absorbed by the dead skin cells that form up earwax. So skin cells are hydrophilic, they attracted to water, they absorb the water. But if it overhydrates, if it soaks in, absorbs too much water, it causes again the membranes of the skin cells to puncture and burst, hence breaking up the skin cells and the earwax plug. So hydrogen peroxide drops, contrary to belief and myth, they don't dissolve earwax. For me, when the word dissolves means that the whatever substance is there is completely eradicated. It's no longer present. So earwax is still in the ear when you use hydrogen peroxide drop, but it breaks it up. But when it does break it up, because it's macerating the skin cells and it's causing it to be really softened, it turns mushy and quite difficult to remove at times. So in both cases, you are going to see some residual sticky wax coating and staying in the ear canal wall. Non-significant, you can see that here, so I'm just hovering over it. If I can get it, brilliant. If not, I'm not too concerned. Again, a kind of a myth is that earwax is bad for us. Earwax is actually very healthy for us, and to some degree, all of us possess some earwax. Our bodies have evolved over millennia to develop earwax, and that's to help protect the skin that lines the ear canal. So the skin that lines the outer third of the ear canal, it's protecting the underlying cartilage, and the skin that lines the inner 2/3 of the ear canal is designed to help protect the underlying bone. So earwax not only provides a physical barrier, but it's slightly acidic, and the acidity helps to repel and inhibit harmful bacteria and fungal growth. Also, earwax, when it's sitting on the skin, it's oily, and it helps to moisturize, lubricate the skin, preventing it from drying and cracking. So it helps the skin to retain internal moisture. Without the oils in earwax coating the ear canal wall, any water within the skin cells, it rises to the surface of the canal wall and it evaporates, and we get really dry, crackly skin. So the oil helps to, the oils that form into earwax, so sebum, which is one of the oils, which is a fatty, viscous, oily substance. It's also secreted by our hair strands on our scalp, and an oily sweat secreted by the ceruminous glands. These glands are exclusive to the ear canal, under our armpits and also inner groin, and it secretes a less viscous, a more watery type, diluted, oily sweat. So these oils, they combine with dead skin cells, to form earwax. And earwax is generally quite sticky, so it helps to trap any foreign invaders, so any pollen, dust or dirt that may enter the ear. And earwax, in the most instance, naturally comes out of the ear on its own accord. So the skin that lines the ear canal, as it dies and sheds, it's uniquely evolved to migrate sideways out of the ear, like a conveyor belt motion, and that rate of migration is between 1.5 and 3 millimeters a month. It obviously does vary from individual to individual. It's comparable to the growth of our fingernails. And as this skin naturally migrates out of the ear, any earwax sitting on the surface is naturally transported out of the ear. So earwax is good for us. So having a bit of earwax on the side of the ear canal walls, as you will see, you've seen it already on the right side, you'll see it on this left side as well. I always attempt to hover over it, and if it comes away, brilliant, but if not, it's not a problem. And because of the consistency, the only way to really remove all of that, which again, it's not going to provide any clinical benefit, you could argue it would be the opposite, is by scraping the canal walls or flushing water in there. And again, water's bad for our ears. Ironically, although water is bad for our ears, for centuries it's been used to clean earwax from our ears. Now, it can sometimes effectively clean earwax out of our ears. Previously it was called ear syringing. That's no longer allowed in the UK. That's when doctors and nurses would use a metal syringe to flush water into the ear at high pressure. The concept is it'll hit up against the eardrum, it'll fill up the ear canal, and as the water bounces back out, any wax in the ear will be flushed out. In the UK, instead of ear irrigation, syringing, we call it ear irrigation, and that's when, again, water is flushed into the ear, but at a more controllable flow of rate of water. So there's either a foot pump or settings on the irrigation machine, so you can adjust it to ensure it's not over-pressurizing. However, some of the risks involved with ear syringing and ear irrigation, although ear irrigation is safer, is perforation of the eardrum, because you are literally flushing water up against it, especially if you've had previous ear surgery or grommets or a thin, weakened eardrum. I've got a very hyperflaccid eardrum, which means it vibrates a lot because it's very, very thin, thinner than normal. Also, probably for me, the biggest risks of getting water in the ear is developing swimmer's ear. Swimmer's ear is an outer ear infection called otitis externa as a consequence of getting water in the ear, hence the name, swimmer's ear. Water provides the perfect breeding ground for bacteria and fungi to incubate and grow and multiply. Also, water helps to wash away those natural oils in the ear, so the ear becomes less acidic, and it doesn't provide a barrier to the underlying skin and cartilage and bone, so it can then lead to an infection. And water can macerate the skin, and this skin, if it becomes really soft and it dies and it wilts, again, it itself can get infected. So I hope you enjoyed that video, guys, and some of the explanations about why we have earwax and how it drops works and why ear irrigation syringing is not always advised.